There are several regional finds officers around the country, but fortunately for us, we've arranged to meet ours at the pub. Sorry, Mudmen HQ. Geoff Egan works for the PAS and the British Museum. He's also got a beard, so he clearly knows his stuff. This is what we found in Wapping, and I've got to say, there is a whopping amount to look at. And everybody laughed. Right, let's have a little look.
Well, you're surprised at the amount that's found. There's a huge range of material here. It's fantastic.
Well, you've put that absolutely right, Geoff. You really have. I am astounded, in fact, at the amount of stuff we found here. What I'm even more astounded by is how little I found, but how much everyone else found, which is bad for me, but great for Mudmen. Let's start with the pipes over here and what we've got. Come on.
Let's go. Well, we've got a range of clay pipes here, right from the 17th century through to the 19th century.
Okay.
There's decorated and plain, and this small one is perhaps the most interesting because it's so early. It's early 17th century, and it would have contained a very tiny amount of tobacco indeed.
Yeah.
When there were very few ships going between America and England, so you were getting just the beginnings of that very important trade, which grew and grew. But that one would have held perhaps an eighth of what this 19th century clay pipe. And you can measure the age almost by the size. It's not 100% true, but it's a good rule of thumb.
OK. Now, the one I found, of course, intriguing is this one here. It's got the crown and the keep there, and then Enniskillen, and then Egypt, weirdly.
It's not very well made. The hole has gone actually out, so it's probably a second as a pipe.
Is it? Yeah, it is.
You see where the wire has come out, and it's way off centre.
The flume has come right out of it there.
So they didn't always get it right.
Yeah.
It's actually rarer to find ones that are like that than the ones that work.
Isn't that brilliant? What was less valuable then becomes more valuable now. How brilliant. That's history for you. What's this here? This looks like a more intriguing item here, Geoff.
Oh, that's yet another one of these lead seals for cloths. Okay. And it's got CR for Charles I. And this, I think, CR with a crown over a fleur-de-lis. Yep. Yeah. So, he's 17th century.
I mean, Geoff, we don't want to stress it, but this is an area of specialism for you.
It is indeed.
I think we're with one of the country's leading experts.
Can I just have a word with you about this?
Yes, yeah.
Right, we spoke about this before, yeah. Now, we've said between us that do not pick up the bag seal again.
Now, it's a seal of approval. Your cloth has been looked at, examined, and you pay a penny tax to the king on your cloth.
How would that have gone then, Geoff? Go on, make it live.
On the side, there's this one which has got the hole. That's put on one side. It's bent round. These would originally have been attached. There would have been a rivet on the back of that one, which is pushed through the cloth and through the hole, bent over slightly, and then you hit it with two dies in the way of hammered coins, actually.
Oh, right, OK.
They're labels that tell you on the market stall it's good cloth.
And how old are these?
These vary from... There's one that's Elizabethan there. It's actually got ER on it, and the Tudor arms, through to James I, right at the beginning of the 17th century. So, a lot in a tiny little thing.
OK, what else have we got there, Geoff?
Well, there are 3 halfpennies here, and extraordinarily, they're all made of tin, which is very unusual for English coins. They're using the Cornish tin. Late 17th century, there's William and Mary, looks like either James II or Charles II, but they're very unusual survivals. They weren't particularly popular, and one of these has actually got a hole where a plug of copper alloy, which was put in to show they were real, has fallen out. But that was actually rather a difficult thing to do, and that was to guard against forgery.
These were the days when a coin was materially worth something.
Absolutely, yes.
A bit like our 2p's were, until they changed those,
That's exactly it. Well, we've got such a range of material here, from a clay pipe that would have been smoked by almost anybody at its time. Everybody would have been familiar with it, to these 4 tokens. They're all copper alloy, and they were issued in the mid-17th century. They were issued by individual traders, and they've not only got the date on in some cases, they've got the name and the address of the issuer. And it might have been a grocer or a fishmonger, just a shop owner or somebody in trade of some kind, and they were to supplement the coin of the realm, which had run out of farthings at this time. And because they got the name and address on, you can trace exactly where they were in some cases. And I hope it's going to be possible to trace that one person. It's a challenge, but there we are.
There we go. It's a challenge. Do you accept the challenge?
I think it's for you to do. You go off and find it.
I accept your challenge.
And if there's one man who can tell us whether what we found is significant enough to be registered, it's Geoff Egan, National Finds Advisor at the British Museum and the man to put the facts to our artefacts. This is our Greenwich hoard, Geoff. Are you impressed with it overall?
I am indeed, yes. A great amount of material, and a lot of it is ceramics because you weren't allowed to actually scrape, and a lot of it is from the palace period, not all of it. You've got things from both before and afterwards. You
mentioned the palace there. I think a lot of people would find it not only very surprising that there was this Greenwich Palace, but that both Elizabeth I and Henry VIII were born there, who really are, I would say, the two most famous British monarchs, really.
That's absolutely right. It's a real personal connection for these two outstanding personalities in our history.
First and foremost, Geoff, I think all the mudmen want to know about this, because I found it. Look at that.
Well, that is actually very interesting. As you can see, it is a comb, obviously, but it's a fragment, and the interesting thing about it is it's made of ivory. It's probably 17th century, but the thing about ivory at that date was it was the plastic of its day. This isn't an upper-class item. This is a piece of the cheapest material that was available, even though it come from probably hundreds and thousands of African elephants to make up enough for London, let alone the rest of the country.
So this doesn't only tell us a lot about sort of London 400 years ago, but really kind of how many elephants there were in Africa 400 years ago. For this to be, you know, a plentiful object for every man to use and enjoy and get his nits out with.
But it also shows us the developing empire, of course, the beginnings of empire.
So
and it's probably the only object that you could pick up from this table and use for its original purpose straight away.
Nice observation, Geoff.
No, Geoff, I could sew this fly button onto my flyers.
He's actually right, actually, Geoff, and I could actually use this pin
use
still.
that pin, okay.
And also we could still use that stopper still in the bottle.
I could put that in my bottle.
Yeah, and also there is a marble there we could still actually play with.
I could smoke this, Geoff.
Yes, okay.
We did him there, didn't we? On the back foot. Yay! Mudmen 2, Geoff 0.
Halfway. Well, one of the most interesting things, I think, and one of the most unusual, actually, is this bead, which is glass. As you can see, very colourful thing, but it's quite a large bead for England. This is going to be early 17th century. Yeah. And actually, they were making beads like this in Hammersmith at this time, in the 1630s. Okay. And I've never seen one of these from the river before.
Have you?
So that's really rather a nice find to get that. It's probably not in the European fashion to wear beads like this. Most of these, as far as we're aware, were being traded out to the New World and maybe intended for the local peoples there, where they would have been quite prestigious, very colourful objects, obviously, to have.
Yeah. OK, what else have we got there, Geoff?
Well, the other thing that caught my eye was this tankard lid. This is pewter, but here, we've rather nicely, we've got M-I-A. M is the surname, I is the husband's name, initial, and A is the wife's name, initial. So that's a married couple.
What is pewter?
Well, pewter is an alloy of basically lead and tin in these days, a little bit of copper in it to make it stronger. But these days, pewter doesn't have any lead in it for health and safety reasons.
Lead was everywhere, wasn't it?
Lead was said to be, for the Roman period, one of the reasons that the empire fell. Some people have said that now.
Why
was it? That's true. They were drinking out of lead pipes for water, lead vessels drinking.
Now, one of the things that struck me here, Geoff, just because we're picking things up by eye, is the frequency of these salt glaze pots or jars. Tell me about them. Steve tried to, but go on.
OK. Well, what you've got here are the tops of 4 and more little fragments, and they would have been part of a globular kind of bottle. They would have been so high and a big globular body that would have had quite a serious amount of ale in. And a lot of these were made abroad, first of all. They were made on the continent. So you get arms of different towns and princedoms in Germany, which is probably what this one is. And from these cartouches, you can see, in some cases, where they were made, and they're almost always foreign arms of towns, and sometimes the national arms of England. Sometimes you get the arms of Amsterdam.
They never come up whole. It's only once in a blue moon do we see them whole. And when they do come up whole, there's this great possibility that they are, you know, I've told you before, they can be used as a witch pot. Yeah. So if we do get a whole one and it's got a bung in the top of it, there's a possibility that we still have those inners in it, that somebody is trying to protect themselves from a curse or a spell.
Have you found a whole one?
Well, near enough. I had like a small corner missing off of one.
But have you ever found a whole one, Steve?
Yeah, well, it's never whole to me, just because the...
Have you ever found a whole one?
If you look at it in a certain angle,
Steve,
it looks whole.
Have you found a whole one?
No, I haven't found a whole one.
There we go. Thank you very much.
We'll take this as a no.
What I love about them is, you know, each separate face looks different. And you look at that, that's quite horrific. Talking about horrific. Yes, spot
Oh,
on. Sorry, yeah.
I've lost it a bit.
And then you've got the nice beard there, the bearded guy.
Actually, it does look very like Geoff, because let's face it, Geoff has a certain charm. And there's this one here, which is like a moody-looking troll with really sort of muddled attitudes, and he's wrestling with his sexuality.
How is your wife?
And that's not...
How is your wife?
That was exactly my punchline.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I think this is a really tremendous range of material that you've come up with. I've been particularly impressed by these large number of, you call them Bellarmines, I call them greybeards, but they've been characteristic of this particular site, and I think there's a lot more to be found out about these, so that's something that you can go and look into in detail.
Bounty and Bucket, we're off to Mud HQ and Grand Wizard of Mud, Geoff Egan. All you need to know about Dr. Geoff is that he's sported a full beard since he was 11, he works at the British Museum, the knowledge stored in his memory banks makes Wikipedia look like a leaflet, and he's the perfect man to end the speculation and give me and Brooksy some much-needed education.
So here's our Millbank hoard. Bigger items we've got from Millbank. Less of them, but bigger. Geoff, what do you think of what we found here?
Well, there's, again, a great range. Some of them may well relate to the prison, but the majority don't.
OK.
You've got some things that are very, very recent indeed. I mean, this past year or so, they were probably
really?
thrown into the river.
As recent as that?
As recent as that.
OK.
But you've shown another aspect of the river. It's not just the past that gets in. This dumping of material is constantly going in, and it's happening today, it will happen tomorrow, and it's for a variety of reasons, not just getting rid of rubbish, as we'll see from some of these items.
I've actually found a lot of the sort of more modern things, or things that I've found that I remember from my lifetime, have actually, you know, woken up some memories, you know, that were gone. À la recherche de temps perdu. For instance, this is the United Dairies 3rd pint bottle of milk, which, of course, I used to get every single day at school.
As did I. Yes, I remember.
I think it was something Mrs. Thatcher actually took away this, which is where she was Thatcher Milk Snatcher.
That's
right. And this is United Dairies one. I remember getting these. Do you remember these, Steve?
Yep. Mine was always warm. There was always that taste.
Yes. And you used to get them, so there was like that much in the end became cream in it, didn't it? You used to get those old ones. Yeah, but I've forgotten all about those. Do we know how old these are?
They've got to be 19th or 20th century.
So that's exactly the right time for Millbank, which, of course, built in 1816, demolished in 1890. All the bricks went somewhere, and this was a 16-acre site, so that's a lot of brick. What do we think?
Well, adamantine means very strong, but we need the proof that these are indeed from the prison, if that's the case.
But if I was building a clink, then I'd want my bricks to be adamantine to stop my cons from getting out. So these are strong. And presumably that is the origin of the word, the clink, right? Or is that just a sound locks made?
Clink is a particular prison in London which was called the Clink, and it gave its name, like Bridewell, to many other prisons and a lot of other places.
OK.
Well, it's a good hypothesis, and particularly if one face is worn, then you may well be right about the flooring.
So what about this?
Well, a disc with a hole in it and a lot of stamped letters and...
OK, can I just say, at first, I thought, yeah, that might be an eye-hole cover for a cell door.
Good idea.
Because back then we had glass in them, so it had been quite a big aperture sloping down, and I really thought that was like that. But I think there's markings on it that probably contradict that. I don't know.
But there's writing on both sides, so that's rather against it being a flat put on a door.
Yeah, that's what I felt.
And what do you think, Steve?
That's exactly what I felt.
I remember somebody on the foreshore was convinced that was a spy hole.
It's the eye-hole cover for Spur 7, cell 026, and that eye-hole cover would have gone right above it, above the door, so people can look in the cells, and that's exactly what that is.
All very well powering up to Geoff now, isn't it? Now you know that it's not.
Listen.
No.
You made a right brick of yourself, Owen.
You poo-pooed the brick.
I did, yeah.
And then now, all of a sudden, you find out that that's not a spy hole.
Yeah, I know it's not, but it did really look like it at the time, and it was a disc down there, and I did get caught up in it. OK, what else have we got that you like, Geoff?
Well, there's this glass bottle here. It's an ink bottle because it's got 2 grooves here on which you rested your pen when you were...
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's great, isn't it?
When you had it closed.
Yeah. So how old... That's Victorian, you're saying?
Victorian, late Victorian. It's a very crude bottle for that date, but that's all that was needed to contain your ink on your table.
So, is there anything here, Geoff, that is definitively, undeniably, indisputably from the prison?
Well, this object here, this is a button, of course, a uniform button, and it's pretty definitive because it says convict department. And
Steve.
The crown.
Yes.
And it's got the crown of Queen Victoria. So that says it all. That's got to be from the prison.